3 years ago, I was 48 hours away from signing a deal that would have made me worth $2.3 billion. I had the contracts printed, the lawyers ready, and my pen literally in my hand. But then I made one decision, just one, that cost me everything. And the worst part? I didn't even realize what I'd done until I watched someone else become a billionaire using the exact same idea I threw away. This is the story of the biggest mistake of my life, and if you're an entrepreneur, you need to hear this before you make the same fatal error I did. Hey, story lover! Welcome to the Narrative Hub, Reddit Stories. Believe me, this adventure gets wild, but it's only epic with you. Seriously, you make this possible. Want more stories? Greater adventure? Smash subscribe right now. Smash like. Comment below. Let's go. Let me take you back to where it all began. It was a Tuesday morning in March, and I was sitting in my cramped studio apartment, surrounded by empty coffee cups and crumpled papers. I'd been working on what I thought was going to be the next big thing in social media, a platform that would revolutionize how people connect online. For months, I'd been grinding 16-hour days, coding until my eyes burned, testing features, and building something I believed could change the world. The platform was sleek, intuitive, and solved a problem that millions of people face daily. I had the prototype ready, user testing showed incredible engagement rates, and early beta users were going crazy for it. But here's where the story takes its first dangerous turn. I made a decision that seemed smart at the time, but would later prove to be the most catastrophic mistake of my entire life. The call came at 3:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because I was still awake, debugging code and running on my fifth espresso of the night. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something told me to pick up. Is this the creator of ConnectSphere? The voice was crisp, professional, with just a hint of excitement that made my heart race. Yes, this is him, I replied, trying to sound more awake than I felt. My name is Victoria Murphy, and I represent Titan Ventures. We've been watching your platform very closely, and we'd like to make you an offer. Now, for those of you who don't know, Titan Ventures isn't just any investment firm. They're the giants behind some of the biggest tech unicorns of the last decade. When they call, you listen. Victoria explained that they'd been tracking ConnectSphere's growth metrics, user engagement, and market potential. What she said next made my hands shake so violently I nearly dropped the phone. We're prepared to offer you $2.3 billion for full acquisition rights, plus a 15% equity stake in the expanded platform moving forward. $2.3 billion. Let that number sink in for a moment. That's more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. That's private jets, multiple homes, never having to worry about money again. That's generational wealth that could set up my family for centuries. The next day, I found myself in a glass conference room on the 47th floor of a Manhattan skyscraper, looking out at a city that suddenly felt like it could be mine. Victoria Murphy sat across from me, flanked by 3 other executives whose combined net worth probably exceeded the GDP of small countries. The presentation they showed me was breathtaking. They had charts, projections, market analysis. Everything showed that ConnectSphere could become the next Facebook, the next Instagram, the next platform that defines how humans interact in the digital age. Here's what we see, Victoria said, clicking to a slide that showed user growth projections. Within 18 months, we project 500 million active users. Within 3 years, we're looking at market dominance that could make this platform worth upwards of $50 billion. $50 billion. With a B. She continued, your technology, combined with our resources, marketing power, and global infrastructure, creates a perfect storm for success. We've already identified strategic partnerships with major brands, integration opportunities with existing platforms, and international expansion possibilities that would take you decades to achieve on your own. Everything they said made perfect sense. The numbers were there, the vision was clear, and the opportunity was staring me right in the face. But then came the moment that would haunt me for the rest of my life. As Victoria slid the contract across the polished conference table, she mentioned something that made my blood run cold. It was just one word, casually dropped into the conversation like it was no big deal. Exclusive. The platform will need to be exclusively managed through our development teams, she said. Standard procedure for acquisitions of this magnitude. You'd maintain your equity stake and advisory role, but day-to-day development and strategic decisions would transition to our internal teams. That word, exclusive, triggered something in me. You see, 3 months earlier, I'd had a conversation with my mentor, an old-school entrepreneur named Robert Martinez who'd built and sold several successful companies. Never, and I mean never, give up creative control, he told me over coffee. The moment you hand over the keys to your vision, you lose the soul of what made it special in the first place. I've seen too many brilliant entrepreneurs get bought out, only to watch their innovations get diluted, corporatized, and ultimately destroyed. Those words echoed in my head as I stared at the contract. The pen felt heavy in my hand, like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Here's where I made the mistake that would cost me billions. I assumed that giving up creative control meant giving up the heart of my innovation. I assumed that Titan Ventures would strip away everything that made ConnectSphere unique and turn it into just another social media clone. I was wrong. Dead wrong. But I didn't know that then. All I could think about was Robert's warning and how maintaining control of my vision was more important than any amount of money. I need some time to think about this, I said, setting the pen down without signing. Victoria's expression shifted slightly. Of course, she said smoothly. But I should mention that this offer is time-sensitive. We have other opportunities we're evaluating, and we'll need a decision by Friday. Friday. That gave me 48 hours to make the biggest decision of my life. Those next 2 days were torture. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think about anything except that contract sitting on my Kit Murphy table. I called Robert, I called my family, I called every entrepreneur I knew for advice. The responses were mixed. Some said take the money and run. Others echoed Robert's sentiment about maintaining control. But nobody could make the decision for me. On Thursday night, with less than 12 hours until the deadline, I made my choice. I called Victoria and told her I was walking away from the deal. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "Are you absolutely certain about this decision?" she asked. "Yes," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "I believe in my vision, and I want to maintain creative control." "I understand," Victoria said, though her tone suggested she thought I was making a massive mistake. "The offer is now off the table. Good luck with your venture." And just like that, $2.3 billion vanished from my life. For the first few months after turning down the deal, I felt vindicated. I threw myself back into developing ConnectSphere, convinced that I'd made the right choice. I was going to prove that I could build something even bigger than what Titan Ventures had envisioned. But then the problem started. User growth, which had been explosive during the beta phase, began to plateau. Marketing was expensive, and without the massive budget that Titan could have provided, I was struggling to reach new audiences. Competitors started launching similar platforms with features that looked suspiciously like mine. Worse yet, I started running out of money. The development costs were higher than I'd anticipated. Server costs were skyrocketing as my existing user base remained active, and I was burning through my savings at an alarming rate. 6 months after turning down the deal, I was forced to take on debt just to keep the servers running. Then came the day that shattered my world completely. I was scrolling through tech news, looking for inspiration and maybe some investor leads, when I saw a headline that made my heart stop. Titan Ventures launches revolutionary social platform Connect projects 1 billion users within 18 months. My hands trembled as I clicked the article. The platform they'd built was eerily similar to ConnectSphere, but it was everything I dreamed my platform could become. It was sleeker, faster, more intuitive, and packed with features that I'd only imagined. But here's the part that really destroyed me. At the bottom of the article, there was a quote from Victoria Murphy. "We're proud to have worked with former ConnectSphere creator Michael Davidson as a strategic advisor on this project. His initial vision provided the foundation for what we believe will become the defining social platform of the next decade." Michael Davidson. That name hit me like a freight train. I frantically searched for more information and found Michael's LinkedIn profile. He was a developer who'd worked on social media platforms for years, but hadn't created anything revolutionary. Until he met with Titan Ventures, apparently. Here's what I discovered through some digging and a few uncomfortable phone calls. After I turned down their offer, Titan Ventures didn't just move on to their next investment opportunity. They took the meeting notes from our discussions, the market research they'd done on my platform, and the strategic vision they'd developed around ConnectSphere, and they went shopping for someone who would say yes. Michael Davidson was that someone. They offered him a fraction of what they'd offered me, somewhere around $50 million for his existing platform and development skills, plus the promise to build something based on the ConnectSphere concept. The platform they launched 18 months later hit 800 million users in its first year. Michael Davidson, who'd never created anything remotely as innovative as ConnectSphere, was now worth over $4.7 billion. So, what was my mistake? What was the one fatal error that cost me the chance to become a billionaire? I assumed that exclusive management meant they would destroy my vision. I assumed that giving up creative control meant giving up the soul of my innovation. But here's what I discovered too late. Titan Ventures had no intention of changing the core concept of ConnectSphere. Their internal documents, which eventually became public during a later acquisition, showed that they planned to enhance my vision, not replace it. They wanted exclusive management rights not to control the creative direction, but to scale it efficiently. They had teams of developers, designers, and strategists who specialized in taking brilliant ideas and making them accessible to millions of people. The exclusive clause wasn't about taking away my creativity, it was about amplifying it. The mistake wasn't trusting my mentor's advice. Robert Martinez had given me solid counsel based on his experiences. The mistake was assuming that his experience with smaller companies and different types of acquisitions applied to my situation. Titan Ventures wasn't some corporate machine looking to strip mine my innovation. They were specialists in scaling revolutionary platforms while maintaining their core appeal. They'd done it with dozens of other companies, turning small startups into global phenomena while keeping the original vision intact. But I never asked the right questions. I never requested examples of how they'd handled creative control with other acquisitions. I never asked to speak with other entrepreneurs who'd worked with them. I made my decision based on fear and incomplete information. The consequences of my mistake extended far beyond just losing money. ConnectSphere continued to struggle, and within 2 years, I was forced to shut it down entirely. The user base I'd built migrated to other platforms, many of them to Titan's Connect platform. The technology I developed, the innovation I'd been so protective of, died with my company. Meanwhile, Michael Davidson became a billionaire by essentially letting Titan Ventures do exactly what they'd wanted to do with my platform. But the story gets even worse. 2 years after shutting down ConnectSphere, I received an email that felt like a knife to the heart. It was from Victoria Murphy. "I wanted to reach out personally," the email read, "because I've always regretted how our initial discussion ended. I think there may have been some miscommunication about our intentions regarding creative control." She went on to explain that Titan Ventures had a standard practice of maintaining original founders as chief innovation officers for the first 5 years of any acquisition, with full creative authority over product development and user experience. "The exclusive management clause you were concerned about," she wrote, "refers only to business operations, marketing, and scaling logistics. Creative vision and product innovation would have remained entirely under your control, with unlimited budget and resources to realize your complete vision for the platform." She attached case studies of 3 other acquisitions where the original founders had maintained creative control while Titan handled the business side of scaling. Reading that email, I realized that my $2.3 billion mistake wasn't just about money, it was about never asking for clarification on the one thing that mattered most to me. Today, Michael Davidson's version of my idea has over 1.2 billion active users. The company is valued at approximately $47 billion, and Davidson himself is worth an estimated $8.3 billion. He's been featured on magazine covers, given TED Talks, and is considered one of the most innovative entrepreneurs of his generation. Meanwhile, I'm working as a freelance developer, trying to rebuild my career from scratch, and living with the knowledge that I walked away from becoming one of the richest people on earth. But here's why I'm telling you this story. It's not just about my regret or the money I lost. It's about the critical mistake that almost every entrepreneur makes at some point in their career, making major decisions based on assumptions rather than facts. When you're faced with a life-changing opportunity, especially one that involves giving up some level of control, here's what you need to do. Ask specific questions. Don't assume you understand what terms like exclusive management mean. Get examples, case studies, and detailed explanations. Talk to other entrepreneurs who've been through similar situations. Not just your mentors, but people who've actually signed deals with the same companies. Consider the difference between losing creative control and gaining the resources to realize your complete creative vision. Don't let fear of corporate dilution blind you to legitimate opportunities for amplification. If I could go back, here are the questions I would have asked Victoria Murphy that day. What exactly does exclusive management mean in terms of day-to-day operations? Can you show me examples of other acquisitions where you maintain the founder's creative vision? What level of input would I have on product development decisions? How do you typically handle situations where the original founder disagrees with a strategic direction? Can I speak with other entrepreneurs who've signed similar deals with Titan? Those 5 questions could have saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Here's what I've learned about success in the 3 years since I walked away from that deal. Sometimes the biggest risk isn't taking a leap of faith, it's letting fear and assumptions keep you from jumping. I thought I was protecting my vision, but I was actually destroying it. I thought I was maintaining control, but I was actually ensuring that I'd lose everything. The platform I was so determined to protect died 2 years later. The vision I was so afraid of losing was eventually realized by someone else, with the exact same resources I'd turned down. If you're an entrepreneur, an investor, or anyone facing a major life decision, here's what my story should teach you. Question your assumptions relentlessly. The things you know to be true might be based on incomplete information or irrelevant experiences. Fear is a terrible advisor. Make decisions based on facts, not emotions. Sometimes maintaining control means giving up control to people who can help you achieve your vision more effectively than you could alone. Ask the hard questions, even if they're uncomfortable. The embarrassment of asking detailed questions is nothing compared to the regret of missing life-changing opportunities. But wait, there's one more part to this story that makes it even more painful. Last month, I received another email from Victoria Murphy. Titan Ventures was launching a new acquisition fund specifically focused on platforms that had failed to scale independently but had solid foundational technology. We're looking for innovative founders who are ready to give partnership a second chance, the email read. They were offering me a chance to pitch a new platform concept, with the promise of learning from the miscommunications of our previous interaction. I spent weeks debating whether to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore it entirely. The emotional scars from my first mistake were still too fresh. But another part of me wondered if this was the universe giving me a second chance to get it right. After 3 years of regret, sleepless nights, and watching someone else become a billionaire with my idea, I've decided to take the meeting. But this time, I'm going in prepared. I've got a list of 37 specific questions about creative control, operational authority, and decision-making processes. I've spoken with 6 entrepreneurs who've done deals with Titan. I've researched every acquisition they've made in the past 5 years. Most importantly, I've accepted that the biggest mistake I made wasn't trusting the wrong people, it was not gathering enough information to make an informed decision. I can't promise you that this story will have a happy ending. I can't guarantee that my second chance will work out better than my first opportunity. But I can promise you this: I will never again make a billion-dollar decision based on assumptions and fear. Whether you're facing a career change, a business opportunity, or any major life decision, remember my story. Remember that the most expensive word in the English language might just be assume. Ask questions. Get facts. Challenge your fears. And whatever you do, don't let the biggest opportunity of your life slip through your fingers because you were too afraid to ask for clarification. Because somewhere out there, there's probably another entrepreneur who's about to make the same mistake I did. And maybe, just maybe, hearing my story will help them make a different choice. The choice I should have made when I had $2.3 billion sitting right in front of me, waiting for nothing more than my signature on a contract I was too scared to fully understand. Don't be me. Be better than me. Ask the questions I didn't ask. Take the leap I was too afraid to take. And maybe, just maybe, you'll end up with the life I could have had. What's the biggest assumption you've made that cost you an opportunity? Share your story in the comments below, because we all have that one decision we wish we could do over.